It has been quite an eventful day with Azimio leader Raila Odinga rejecting those particular presidential results that were announced by IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati, and on the other side at Serena, the four commissioners for IEBC actually saying that we disown these particular results. So who is saying the truth? But before we actually, start this particular discussion, I want us to take a look and listen to this particular three sound bites of Ruto, saying, Ruto talking about Chebukati, and also Raila talking about Chebukati, and also Juliana Cherera, who is the vice chairperson of IEBC, talking about this particular results. Then we start this particular discussion. Right, and just to inform you, our guest today, Davis Tayo, who is an economic empowerment expert, and also Shadrack Wambui, a constitutional lawyer. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Stanley.
Right. Before we actually get this particular sound bites, I really want your reaction on that. How can we unfold this particular? I can start with you, Wakili. This particular events that have happened today. Who is saying the truth?
Well, Stanley, thank you for having me, and a good evening to our viewers. Now, I think what is transpiring in our country is it's a constitutional moment. We are having a moment where we get to stretch the constitution and try the elastic limit of our constitution. So, in a sense, the disagreement between the commissioners, particularly speaking the four commissioners who are up against the three commissioners that have owned the presidential results that were declared yesterday by Chairman Wafula Chebukati. I mean, in a sense, it invites us to think very deeply of, firstly, what really is the role of the chairman of the IEBC. And in any event, going by the wordings of the Constitution, in any event, if truly the reflection of Article 138 is that the chairperson is the one who is supposed to announce the results, must there be a consensus, or must there be a discussion, a table discussion between the commissioners before the presidential results are announced or declared? So in a sense, this forms a very good question that the Supreme Court must determine or will be considering. And then on the other hand, when you look at the disagreement, or rather the uncomfortable position that the leader of the Azimio has taken, then we are in a sense also presented with another constitutional moment, because Raila has in the year 2013 challenged the presidential results. He helped us in forming part of the jurisprudence that we enjoy currently. In the year 2017, he also challenged the presidential results, and the law that was there in the year 2013 grew, as we now know of it, in the year 2017. And now, with the press briefing that he had today, which clearly gives us an indication that he might be going to the Supreme Court, then some of us that enjoy drinking from this cup of constitutional interpretation, then we are looking forward to a constitutional moment where we'll discuss some of these questions.
Indeed.
Yes.
And before I actually engage Davis, I want us to now listen to those particular sound bites of actually basically Juliana Cherera talking. And remember, this particular four commissioners, Juliana Cherera, who's the vice chair of IEBC, Francis Wandere, Justice Nyangai, and also Irene Samit. Let's get to listen to what Cherera was saying about this particular, the last phase of the tallying, the last phase of this particular tallying process.
The 0.01% translates to approximately 142,000 votes. And we are saying that we did not process. And that's why they come out with glaring mistakes, and we don't take ownership of the same.
Right, and the whole numbers. I mean, it has been quite a discussion, and right now, parents, everyone is literally, with calculators trying to understand what is this 0.01%. As a banker, as a former banker per se, try to explain to us these particular numbers. According to Cherera, just to quote, Mr. Chebukati's aggregation was as follows: Raila Odinga 48.85%, Ruto 50.49%, Mwaura 0.27%, Wajakoya 0.44%. This summation gives us a total of 101%. As a former banker, do these numbers add up?
There was mathematical error, if I may say, and I want to say that with grace. I didn't get an A in maths, so maybe I missed some of those things. But that shouldn't remove us from the essence of what has happened. I want to comment on legal issues, and I'm not a lawyer. But what I liked about what has happened today is...
I think we're trying to understand law and maths at the same time.
Yes. So we have an independent commission, and we also have independent commissioners. I think that's what we need to realize. So that just that you are a commissioner in an independent commission doesn't remove your independence as an individual, as a commissioner. And that's what we are seeing today. And we're just enjoying the fruits of the new constitution. We're enjoying the fruits of the various precedents that came out of the Supreme Court decisions in the past, so that the voters' rights to vote was exercised without any problem. Number two, we have officers exercising their constitutional obligations. And that's what Chebukati was saying yesterday. He took an oath to do what he did, and he felt he had to do it. Now we have these 4 commissioners who said, we are independent. Okay. And they exercised their right of independence in doing what they did, in exposing what they thought is an opaque kind of a situation. Then we have Baba, as we call him, exercising his right to seek redress based on the provisions of the Constitution. And the winner then is Kenya, because we are seeing the veracity of this process being put to test. And I can't wait. I think we are in for some very nice jurisprudence, as the lawyer said. And it's a good moment. And all the leaders have said, please, let's follow the Constitution. There are avenues which have been provided. No one should take the law in their own hands. Let's all be peaceful. Let's go back to our day-to-day lives. Let's resume normal business activities. Loans have to be paid. Salaries have to be paid. August is coming, end of August. So let's go back to what we've done. As voters, we've done what we were mandated by the Constitution to do. Let the constitutional bodies now take course.
Indeed. Now, help us now break down these particular numbers.
Yes.
So that even for our viewer, they can understand. Well, when Chirera talks about the 0.01%,
yeah.
What is she talking about here?
Now, mathematically, starting from 14 million, 0.01% is 1,420. Not what she said, 142,000. See, from 14 million, if you do 10%, you reach 1.4. And if you go to 1%, you have 142. 0.1, you have 14. Then 0.01, you get 1420. So as I said, there was a mathematical, whatever it was, at the moment she said what she said. But that, I think that was not what she came to do for all the minutes she was on media. There is something much more, which I'm saying, let's not lose what she was saying. She was talking more about the independence of the individual commissioners, which is what we have seen. And so there are avenues to seek redress. She promised to give more details, which she has done. And I think the next step now is to approach the courts for the declaration to be reviewed, to be affirmed or to be annulled. We'll have to wait and see.
Indeed, and yeah. Now still on the whole numbers, because you say numbers don't lie.
Yes.
So in case, and going by what Chirera had mentioned, will these numbers change anything? If tables were ever turned and all that, will they have caused any, probably a runoff?
Borrowing from the previous Supreme Court case that happened in the last election, the learning was that election is a process. So you cannot just run and say mathematically I'm correct. It is more important how you arrived at those numbers. And I think that is what is at test. The process of arriving at a declaration. Was it done properly? Was it even done? Because based on what Baba spoke today, he says there was no declaration. It is a nullity. So no declaration has been made. So you see, it now goes to law. It's not so much about the numbers. The process is very important. Election is a process. We voted. Verification has to be done before declaration is done. So that whole process is what is being reviewed, and that is what is at test now.
Wakili, where do these numbers, the numbers and the law, where do they add up?
I mean, we are living in a democratic country. Numbers are as important as the process. We remember when the court is called upon to nullify any election results, the test usually is on a qualitative test and a quantitative test. So the court, number one, must look at, did you have more numbers than me? So that if I had more numbers than you did in the elections, then as a consequence, I should automatically first be declared the winner as opposed to you who secured or got lower numbers than myself. Then the second question that the court will now ordinarily look, and this of course flows from the Supreme Court's interpretation of Section 83 of the Elections Act in the year 2017. So that now the process has been made as important as the numbers. So that in as much as you might have higher numbers, or you might have gotten higher numbers than myself, then the court will also look at the process in itself. So that if the process that led to your election was flawed, then a poisonous tree cannot produce fruits that are not poisonous. So that the fruits of your election as a candidate will also be deemed to be poisonous. Now, we return to the process in itself. So that the question, as Davis has put it, the expert in those numbers that you keep mentioning, is that when these 7 commissioners sit, the view that the 4 have taken is that, number one, either there must be a consensus on who has won, depending on the results that have been, number one, they have been verified. You collect the results, you verify, and then you tally. And then after the tallying, then the declaration is made. So that there must be some sort of a meeting. Remember, the argument that they make, the 4 of them make, is that even before the declaration, there must be a round table where we get to agree what is the percentage that X or Y has gotten. So that we now come to the conclusion, either unanimously that X has won, or Dr. William Ruto has won, or Raila Amolo Odinga has lost, or we now vote by our numbers. That I think you have arrived at a wrong formula. Because remember, when you read the Article 138 of the Kenyan Constitution, you arrive at the conclusion that the numbers are very important. That there is a threshold. You must get 50% plus 1. That is mathematics in itself. You must also get some percentage, at least 25% from half of the counties that we have. So really, the mathematics is also at the heart. And I know for sure, I mean, I went to Masana School and I think I got an A in maths. And one thing is for sure is, sometimes when we are doing mathematics, using the same formula, sometimes we arrive at different conclusions. So that we must be taught, we must work together again to authenticate or verify, where did you go wrong? Where did Stanley go wrong, or where did Davis get the mathematics wrong? And that verification process between the members is, I think, what now the 4 commissioners are coming up with. And saying that, you see, Chebukati just came up with the conclusion that Dr. William Samoei Ruto had reached the 50% plus 1. So that you must understand him coming from there. But so the question...
So basically the commissioners are trying to understand the formula which Chebukati came up with for these numbers.
Yes. But I think the lion in the room, or the elephant in the room, in my own humble view, is when the last paragraph of the statement that has been read by these 4 commissioners is that they call to question the credibility of the result that was declared by Mr. Chebukati Wanyonyi. So that if you read the last paragraph, I think the fourth paragraph in that statement, they make the indication that the results were declared without the announcement of the results that had been received from a number of constituencies.
Yeah.
Yes. So in a sense, you must revert back to history and ask yourself what really happened in the year 2017, the election that happened on the 8th day of August 2017, that was nullified on the 1st day of September 2017. Remember, one of the reasons why these results or the declarations was declared unconstitutional was that there was a declaration of the president-elect in the absence of about 11,000 from 34As. So that the duty of the commission, and particularly speaking of the chairperson of the commission, is to verify the results. You see, you must verify, and the verification process, you must begin it from Form 34A, and then you go to Form 34B, so that you now arrive at your own Form 34C. So the verification process is very important. Now, when they say that the announcement, there was no declaration of some results from some constituencies, is it to tell us that the commission did not have some of these Form 34As or Form 34Bs before this declaration was made? So Stanley, that is where you must wonder. If that declaration was made in the absence of these forms, so how was the tallying made? How was the verification made? And that in itself now calls to question or impugns the declaration that was subsequently made by the chair of the commission.
Then was this particular, you speak of a round table of this, all the commissioners sitting together and actually looking at this particular results before we actually, get to hear what both Ruto and Raila actually said about Chebukati. Cherera was saying that, they didn't actually, see these particular results, and the same particular statement was echoed by Raila Odinga today at KICC,
yes.
Saying that this particular, the commissioners didn't get to see that this particular results, and that Wafula Chebukati was the one in charge of the whole tallying process, and that he was the one who knew all this. Does the law indicate anything to do with this?
Yes, you remember at least one thing that the viewers should know when they are at home is that there is the law as is written in books, and then there is the law as interpreted by judges, because it is the reserve of judges to interpret the law and to tell us what the law is. So that if you return back to the Maina Kiai's decision, I think Maina Kiai's decision will be at the heart of all these discussions. At the concluding paragraphs of that judgment, the Court of Appeal makes the conclusion that, you see, it was not the intention of the framers of the Constitution to vest all powers of the Commission in one individual. So that the chairperson of the Commission, Mr. Wafula Chebukati Wanyonyi, should be seen as the chairperson of these commissioners. He should be speaking on behalf of the commissioners. He is not the commission. Chebukati is not the commission. Chebukati only is there as the leader of the commission, and is expected. I mean, public participation and involvement of people is a principle in the Constitution that should actually prevail upon where 2 or 3 people are gathered, or where the Constitution requires that you should be sitting as a commission. So the question that you should be asking yourself, if indeed what these commissioners are saying is correct, because from where we are just sitting, we are just but ventilating what we've been seeing. Mm-hmm. We do not know who really is honest with Kenyans. We are just but trying to speculate that this one could be correct, this one will not be correct. But if indeed what Cherera and those other 4 commissioners or 3 commissioners are saying is correct, then one wonders, why is Chebukati behaving, or why did Chebukati behave as though he is the commission? The responsibility that he has in law to pronounce or to make these declarations when a presidential election is conducted is a responsibility that he assumes as the leader of the commission, not as an individual or as the head or as the commission. At some point you might want to confuse Chebukati as an individual, Chebukati as the chair of the commission, Chebukati as the commission. Some of these questions will find themselves up for determination before the Supreme Court. And basically, going back to 2017, we had the whole confusion of roles.
And again, the whole problem. So with that, are we seeing the same here? The whole confusion of roles.
Yes. Remember, if the constitution does not contain everything that it wants to say. It just contains some salient features, and then they are enabling laws. So that when you read, the constitution as being the creature that gives birth to the IEBC, then you must go back to the IEBC Act. So that the IEBC Act on the second schedule tells us something, that when there are decisions to be made by the body, it must either be made unanimously or there must at least be a vote and the majority takes the day.
Indeed.
Yes. So to that extent then, what comes to the fore is that, number one, there was no unanimity in the final declaration of who the president-elect is. That is number one. Then you now go to where there is a stalemate. When we have failed to agree, then what do we revert to? We revert to a process called democracy, where we get now people to vote. And what we have been seeing is, out of the 7, 3 against or versus 4. So then if democracy, and I know democracy is stupid, if you want to look at democracy, then the democracy should be telling you that the 4 probably should be taking the day.
We'll definitely be getting to that particular discussion of 3 against 4 and all about that. But then let us listen to what Raila Odinga and William Ruto were saying about Chebukati before we actually continue with the captainmanship of Chebukati.
I and Azimio La Umoja One Kenya and the nation at large were shocked yesterday to learn that Mr. Chebukati alone decided to pronounce himself on the supposed winner of the 2022 presidential elections. We understand that only Mr. Chebukati alone had access to the tally of the presidential vote. He denied all the commissioners access to that information until he suddenly appeared before the commissioners in the late afternoon to present them with a fait accompli.
The hero of this election is the IEBC, led by Wafula Chebukati. I say this with conviction that the IEBC amazed all of us. With the results in the public portal, all the servers were open. And everybody, all you needed is a simple calculator, and you would have the results.
You have it, 2 players, 1 game, 1 referee, but then the comments are different, obviously. Davis, what do you make of this? 2 different players in one particular game, but then what they're saying is, one says that the referee wasn't good to me. The other says, I congratulate the referee for the good work done.
Yeah, when you win, you want to win and know you've won. And when you've lost, you want to know you lost fairly. I think that's what is happening. But personally, I celebrate the boldness that we are starting to see within these independent constitutional commissions. And it's trickling down to the individual commissioners, that they're being bold. And we must congratulate the 4 because they came out and, painted what they thought is opaque. But the other thing I want to make reference to, and I do that advisedly again because I respect the lawyer in the House, is that there were 2 issues that I can remember very well about the 2017 decision. The essence was transparency.
You're referring to the minor case?
Yes, transparency of the process, of the result, and verifiability. Okay. Of course, there's that given decision that the election of the president happens at the polling station. So we seem to have ticked a box of transparency. The real question is, when you're talking about verifiability before a declaration, and I think that's in my simple, unlearned mind, is what I'm seeing. That when you say to verify. What does that process entail? And I think that is what is really on the test. Baba is saying we were unable to verify. In fact, the agent of Azimio did not sign because they were not given the opportunity to verify. On this other side, they're saying the other 3 agents signed. They were okay with the result. They were able to verify. So we are all going to court. I think everyone will have their day in court to prove that they met the threshold of the law. It's not so much of the numbers at test, the way I see it. Because if you want to test to see the numbers, the 34 A's are there. You will be able to tally. But after you tally, how do you then subject this tally to a verification process? And how do you declare? I think that is what is at the test. And Chebukati, in his own way, he said he did it correctly, and he did it. The other Serena 4 say we think it was not done. We actually don't know because they were even asked if they have different numbers. They said they don't have the numbers. Okay, so the numbers can be verified, I think, but how do you do that verification in accordance with the law so that after that verification, then you make a declaration that is binding? I think that is what will be a test.
Wakili, 2 players, 1 referee, actually a number of referees, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the game, one particular player says the game was good, but then the other player says that this particular game wasn't fair. Yes. Some particular referees, when asked, again, they say, you know what, we don't even know the scores because we didn't have, we didn't see anywhere it was recorded. What do you make of this particular scenario?
Stanley, I think we are living in very interesting times. We are living at a time where the Constitution has given us what is called the independent commissions. And independent commission, one of them is the IEBC. And what was expected at the time of promulgation of the Constitution is that we will move from the traditional 3 arms of government. And what the Constitution recognizes are actually 4 arms of government, so that we have the legislature, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary, and now the independent commissions. And I applaud what is happening, really, even in the midst of all these disagreements between these 2 rival groups, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, and the stalemate in the IEBC. It's a good show. It tells us that we did not go wrong in the architecture of the Constitution. So that the IEBC, for one, is at least exercising some level of independence. We have seen Chebukati, telling us that he stood there against a lot of intimidation, against a lot of harassment, and some of his 2 commissioners are actually in hospital. So this tells us that these are people who have gone over and above, to intimidation, to come up to that podium and declare what they think is correct. I must say this, and sending my condolences to the family of the late Musyoka, one of the returning officers in Embakasi who lost his life in the line of duty. May God rest his soul in peace. But even the losing of that life is an indication that these people have stood their ground. They have refused to be cowed or to be intimidated while doing what they believe is correct. So, in the face of this disagreement between these 2 people, one referee saying this and saying that, it is expected in ordinary situations that one group will be happy, one group will be uncomfortable. But even while we have one group that is uncomfortable, we need to understand what is the source of discomfort. Because in any contest, there must be a winner, there must be a loser. Na Waswahili wanasema, yani asiyekubali kushindwa si mshindani. So at the end of it all, we must have a winner. But I think the loser in this contest, Mr. Odinga, I think finds discomfort because he thinks that his loss does not come fairly. And that is where the disagreement is all about. While the winner, on the other hand, applauds the referee and says that I think you did your best, you have discharged your constitutional duty and obligation, and I am the validly elected leader. So while one celebrates the win by virtue of the numbers, and perhaps even some level of transparency, as my colleague has mentioned, that we seemed to have ticked the transparency box, which I agree. But there are other questions that linger. Remember, an election is conducted based on some principles that the Constitution has decreed. There is the principle of accountability, verifiability, accuracy and simplicity of the election. So the question then is, will these results stand as against these principles that the Constitution has propounded or decreed? From where you sit, from where every Kenyan sits, can a Kenyan say that the process was verifiable? Can we say that there was the accuracy in the process? I'm not very good at numbers. I mean, I might not know what 0.012 or 0. What they mean.
But if it was money, you would be right.
I mean, yes. But what is important is this, that 4 out of the 7 commissioners have called to question the accuracy of the numbers.
What does that tell us, though? I mean, four of the 7.
Yes. So it tells us that as far as the majority of the commissioners are concerned, the process in itself was not accurate. That has led to the declaration of Dr. William Ruto, whom I congratulate at this instance, to be the winner of these elections. So really, that constitutional principle of accuracy has been called to question. The question of verifiability of the election results, where we have a declaration either in the absence of these forms or without the declaration of what these results at the different polling station was. So really, we have a question of the verifiability of the process. And I mentioned it, I think, before, that when you return back to what led to the nullification of the presidential results in the year 2017, was the lack of the verifiability of the process. So that we had a declaration in the absence of some forms. And long even after the petition was filed in court, the IEBC was still, under difficulty, supplying some of these Form 34s to Raila Odinga then, in the year 2017. So, ultimately, this result will either stand or fall depending on their compliance with the constitutional principles, which are verifiability and all those that I have mentioned. But I mean, to sum it all, I think I am glad from where I sit. Because ultimately we have, as Kenyans, we have now surrendered our power to the courts, the judiciary, to tell us which is right and which is wrong. And that is why we do not want people to fight. Let us just surrender our sovereignty as we have done in the Constitution to the judiciary. Let the judiciary tell us, should we go by what Dr. William Ruto is telling us about the results, or should we ultimately go with what Raila Odinga is telling us as far as the correctness of this election is concerned?
Let's go back to 2017 and 3 particular words that you mentioned. Maina Kiai's case.
Yes.
And actually, it is quite a long one. Before we actually get into it,
yes,
take us through that particular case for the benefit of our viewers. What was this case basically all about before we actually get into it deeply?
Maina Kiai's decision, and I'm going to the heart, at the core of that decision, is that it concerned itself with the transparency of the election process. So, number one, there was the question as which is the primary evidence in the presidential elections. Should we look at Form 34A? Should we look at Form 34B? What will be the primary document? And the court arrives at the conclusion that when in the process of verification, it is important to consider Form 34A because it is the primary document. Remember, this case confirms that elections are actually won or lost at the polling station. And what is important is to consider what results did you get at the polling station. And at the polling station, we have Form 34A. So the Form 34A is what is transmitted because the question of transmission of results was also at the heart of the Maina Kiai's decision. And Maina Kiai's decision, the court is saying that this Form 34A must be transmitted electronically to the National Tallying Center and the Constituency Tallying Center.
It also, to cut you short,
Yes.
sorry for that, it says that for purposes of a presidential election of the commission shall electronically transmit in the prescribed form the tabulated results of an election for the president from a polling station to the constituency tallying center and to the national tallying center. And also number 2, tally and verify the results received at the national tallying center, and also publish the polling result forms on an online public portal maintained by the commission. So, I mean, this particular, the fact that we had this particular Maina Kiai's case, so we knew that, it is going to cure our whole, transparency and trust issues, so to speak. Did it actually cure it?
To an extent, the transparency issue has been addressed. If you remember, in the build-up to the declaration, there was anxiety and pressure from all corners. You need to hasten this process. But the chairman's response was, all the forms are available. If you are in such a hurry, please download the 46,229 forms and tabulate it yourself, because he has to do it in a certain way which has been prescribed in law. So to an extent, that bit of transparency was met. What we are seeing now is, after the transparency, somebody has to collect and tabulate and tally, to use the legal term, and then subject that tally to a verification process and then make a declaration. That is the elephant in the room. Was that process of verification done correctly? And all the commissions are saying, all the commissioners are saying, the two sides are saying we did it correctly. The other question is the commission supposed to just convey the result as received, or and if that is the case, where is the space of consensus? Because 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Is there room for a decision, a vote, as relates to a number? That is critical. But as the lawyer is saying, you can't just go to the numbers. The whole process has to be subjected to some constitutional and legal provisions. And that's why I'm saying, really, the case is a very interesting one. We're actually going to the formula of arriving at the result. You can say 1 + 1 is equal to 2, but somebody else will tell you again 4 - 2 is equal to 2. So don't box me here at 2 and saying the answer is correct. Let's go back and see which formula was applied to arrive at this result, which is very, very important. Yeah.
Wakili, he has raised quite an interesting, bit of the whole deadlines and the whole pressure. Could we say that the deadlines pushed, because before these particular results were announced on Monday, there was all that particular anxiety, the whole pressure to IBC to actually announce this. As much as IBC had the whole deadline of 7 days to announce these particular results, could we say that these deadlines, because the whole, even the agents, the whole commissioners had their own deadlines to tally the constituency results, so that they can actually tabulate all of this. So could we say that the pressure to IBC was quite a lot, so that it put forward errors and all that?
Stanley, to be very fair to you, I don't think there was a lot of pressure to them. Okay. In any event, you have seen the results were actually announced on Monday, or actually yesterday.
Yesterday,
yeah. Yes, and really the constitutional timelines was 7 days, so that the timeline will actually be expiring today. It tells us that they actually announced the results a day before the deadline. So really, if there was any pressure, then I think you will make a very good case if the results were announced today as opposed to yesterday.
Yeah.
But in any event, I know Kenyans, it is Kenyans who are under pressure. It is Kenyans who are pressurizing the IEBC.
And not the other way around. IEBC wasn't even pressured.
Yes. And you know, Kenyans, and I know majority of our friends were actually under pressure and the anxiety because people are looking forward to the transition, to the change of guard in the top leadership of our country. I mean, and that expectation is so obvious. And you will see from probably their uninformed position of the majority of the Kenyans, they thought the results should be announced almost immediately. We have had to do so many of these sessions so that we can enlighten most or the majority of the Kenyans to know that the IBC had a timeline of 7 days so that they will announce within 7 days on a date they thought they were comfortable. And by saying that, I will stop at saying that it is not correct that the IBC were under pressure. It is Kenyans who are under pressure or who are under pressure to know who their leader is or will be. And really, if Stanley, we look back at these timelines are important. Remember, the leadership, the top leadership of this country is very fundamental to, you know, the progress of this country, either individually or collectively as a nation. And that is why the timelines, as you look at them, the IBC chair or the commission is expected to make this declaration within 7 days after the elections have been conducted. And then any aggrieved party should file their petition within 7 days. So we expect at least within these 7 days, at least today, yesterday, between yesterday and Monday, that we will have the declaration made by, we'll have a petition filed by any aggrieved party. Remember, Wajakoya is also part of the presidential candidates, so that if he feels uncomfortable about the results, if he feels that the process in itself, in as much as the numbers might not look very good as far as he's concerned, but if he feels uncomfortable about the process, remember, while he was voting, he had a challenge with the identification of the Kim's kit. So if he feels the process is or was improper or unlawful, he still has an opportunity to challenge the results. So any person who feels aggrieved has the 7 days. And then we will have at least 14 days when the case will be heard and a decision returned. And when that decision is returned, then depending on whichever way it goes, then it will influence the next direction that we'll take. So that if the result comes out that the declaration made by Chebukati Wanyonyi that was made yesterday is null and void, as Raila Amolo Odinga would wish is declared, then we'll have a repeat of the elections within 60 days. So the repeat of the election within 60 days means any day between day 1 to the 60th day. And if the court affirms the position that has been taken by the declaration that was made by Chebukati Wanyonyi, then I think we will just have to return back to normalcy. We wait for 14 days. The Assumption of Office Committee prepares their things. We have a swearing in ceremony either at Kasarani or whichever ground that the government will choose. And then when we return back to normalcy, then everything continues as we hope. So really the point I am trying to make is these timelines are constitutional. They are to be respected. They cannot be expanded. So Chebukati was under an obligation. He has discharged his obligation. And one thing that the citizens should know is that the architecture of our constitution is framed like a relay race. That there must be a baton that people pass. So that on the 9th day of August 2022, Kenyans, we went to vote. And then we passed the baton to the polling officers, those clerks at the polling stations. And then the polling clerk passed the baton to the returning officer at the the constituency tallying center. And then the baton was passed to the national tallying center. Then Chebukati and his team make the declaration. And then we receive, and we saw Dr. William Ruto receiving the results. Then the baton is now passed. If you're feeling aggrieved, then we rush to court. So the court now, the ball is in their court. And then the court makes their declaration, and then it goes on and on. So the architecture of the Constitution is so flawless, so that if someone fails, it is very easy to point out that, Stanley, you have failed us. when it comes to the either declaration of the results, or Stanley, you have failed us either at, you have refused to accept the arguments that have been made, which clearly points to these results being a nullity or being unconstitutional or illegal. And I think Kenyans must understand that, so that we must know where to place our blame.
Indeed. And now many would make that attempted to ask if Raila Odinga, not even if actually, it is when, because today he had a meeting, press address, and he said that he's going to seek legal action, but then he didn't mention a specific date. So when he does this, in between those particular 7 days, as you have mentioned, many attempted to ask, will it hold water this particular time round?
No, I think it's a question of wait and see. But as far as the odds are speaking, I think he has very good odds. People who are very good at betting, like my brother Shango or Shadrack Mukami, will tell you that when you see the stalemate between these 3 commissioners and 4 commissioners, that is a point. Remember, everything that they are doing is actually going to be adduced in court as evidence. It speaks of a jointed unit. This has never been seen before. When a majority of the commissioners come out loudly and saying, that we were not involved in the process. Chebukati just brought the numbers. He wanted us to sign. We refused to sign. We wanted an accountable process. The process in itself was opaque. When they say the process was opaque, this is just it's just the opposite of the constitutional principle that election process must be transparent. So that in itself should tell you that so far as things are looking up, I think there could be chance. There could be chance that Raila Amolo Odinga will have a good case. But really, as a practitioner of law, I will tell you this, Stanley, that cases are won and lost at chambers. So preparation of the court documents. Remember in the year 2013, when an affidavit was filed belatedly, was filed late by Raila Amolo Odinga, and it was thrown out. And days after or years after, when Dr. Willie Mutunga has been asked, do you think that the admission of that affidavit will have changed the results? He says, probably yes. So really, the timelines are an enemy here. Raila Amolo Odinga or any aggrieved party who feels aggrieved must file their petition within the timeline that is required. If they file it out of the constitutional timelines, then it tells you, however meritorious their petition will be, it will be inconsequential because it will have been filed outside the timelines that have been set in law. Then, secondly, the conduct or the prosecution of that case in court. Cases are also lost or won depending on either, the sloven approach that lawyers give to cases, or, the laxity that lawyers will give to cases. If you do not take good lawyers, if you do not, invest in some of the people who you send to persuade the court on your behalf, then ultimately, what do you expect? Because people will be, the Kenya Kwanza camp will look for their best or the best among the best of lawyers who are going to defend their win. On the other hand, the Azimio will also look the best or for the best among themselves of lawyers who are going to prosecute the petition. So if you get it wrong in the matrix, then you are not going to succeed, regardless of how meritorious your petition will be. And again, if the courts do not become faithful to their oath of office, if they abdicate their responsibility and their role, if they are persuaded by more than facts and evidence and the law, there are other things that persuade people. If they are persuaded by other things other than facts, law, and the evidence, then of course you do not see how Raila Amolo Odinga would succeed, or you do not see why William Ruto would fail in view of that. So that if the evidence is weak, then William Ruto's president-elect's win should stand. But if the evidence is solid, then Raila Amolo Odinga should also succeed in persuading the court to nullify the elections, as has been announced by Chebukati.
So it basically it may or may not hold water.
Yes, when Stanley, when you practice law, because I practice law in courts, I tell you that the practice of cases in courts is not as 1 plus 1, which is 2. No. There are so many variables. There are so many factors that sometimes, you know, and this is what Aaron Ringera, the retired judge, will tell us. If you also read some of his rulings, he will tell you that, you know, not all strong cases are won. And not all weak cases are lost. So that you might have a strong case, but you end up losing. And you might have a weak case, but depending on how you handle it, because kesi ni kama mtoto, na mtoto umleavyo ndivyo akuavyo, then now you might end up now winning a case that you should be losing.
Let's go back to the numbers. You know, he's saying in law there's no whole 1 plus 1 in everything. But then, Tayo, in the whole matters numbers and focusing on actually, you know, timelines.
Yeah.
This particular, the first address by the 4 commissioners was done yesterday.
Yeah.
When you look at that particular timings, I think it was like around the same time when Chebukati was about to announce the president-elect. And then later today, when that particular address, I think some few minutes later, Raila Odinga also announced that particular address. Do these numbers to you seem, or not numbers, but then timings, do they seem suspicious, you know, in what way?
There's something else you forgot, that the announcement was made just after the deputy president went to Bomas. So it's okay. I mean, it was during the day. People know where you are and all those kind of things. And don't forget, these commissioners they're saying they were together. They disagreed and walked out. Of course, they consulted the 4, and then they said, let's go to wherever they went, and they made that particular declaration. So we can't allege collusion or what. It's knowledge. It's a transparent moment. Everyone thought, let me do the right thing. And I'm happy that we are going to court. And I think everyone will have their day in court. As the lawyer is saying, prepare well and have your day in court. And there's a joke I had from another lawyer who said that when the law is in your favor, you know, hammer the law. When the facts are in your favor, hammer the facts.
Pretty sure Kili has had that joke before.
When neither the law nor the facts are in your favor, what do you hammer?
The table.
You hammer the table. So we're here to see who will hammer the table, who will hammer the law, and who will hammer the facts. But I think as Kenya, we must be happy because of this moment. The independence of our institutions, the independence of the holders of these institutions is at play. The independence of the aspirants is at play. We have confidence in the courts, and I think all the candidates have said so. And even the incumbent president and the deputy showed that they respect the Supreme Court. Raila Odinga has demonstrated many times that he respects the court. So we need not to be worried. Let's go back to our farms. Let's go back to our businesses. While wako na petitions, let's go back to the lawyers, give them work to defend us, and let's wait. And whether they hammer the table, whether they hammer the facts, whether they hammer the law, the courts will pronounce themselves, and we will have a way forward. We'll have a way forward. What I'm fearing now is the potential economic loss because of the uncertainty. Because if somebody wanted to buy a plot or do whatever they want to do, now they have to wait.
I remember actually before elections, the whole language was watch elections ishi.
Yes. So those guys are saying abado bana, watch a Supreme Court to scare. So there is the unintended consequences of all this. But let's not be tired, because the calmness, the serenity, the certainty that will be created with the finality of whatever decision we'll have is better than going into the next 5 years with a result which everyone is doubting and that kind of a thing. And when you win, you want to win. You don't want to go home thinking that a whistle might be blown and Wambiwe, that goal was an offside, so you didn't win. You want to lose fairly. You want to win, you know, knowing that you won. So,
but then for now for that to actually happen, the big word right here is trust. And in 2017, Mr. Odinga didn't, purely trust this particular commission, and he called for the resignation of the CEO then, Ezra Chiloba. Yeah. Right now, it seems this particular politicians, maybe they trusted the IEBC, but then to this particular point, will we ever, now coming to 2027, or maybe some by-elections moving forward?
Even 2027 is far. My mind is asking me, and I want to voice that out, if we go for a rerun, who will officiate?
The re-election.
Yes. Because we have a discord within the commission. I don't know. It's a question we need to start asking ourselves. If does
the law, says it states clearly on anything about this in case of a disgruntled commission? Should we have new commissioners put in place? Also putting in mind that this is Chebukati's last election.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes. I mean, disagreements are meant to always be in our midst. If you are coexisting yourself and others, you are likely to disagree. I sometimes disagree with my wife, who is also watching us this evening. But we always reconcile. I mean, because ultimately, if you look at the architectural design of our constitution, is that under Article 159, we have proposed of some alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. That it is not always, that we will agree, but we must learn to disagree in an agreeable manner, so that if we sometimes have differences between ourselves, we must invite mediation. We must invite reconciliation. We must invite negotiations. Ultimately, this life, as my wife has taught me, is that this life is an art of compromise. So that sometimes you do not have to get it all. We just need to compromise between ourselves. And this is what we expect in the fullness of time. That the chairperson and the committee, and I know they have their internal dispute resolution mechanisms. They are going to invite some of these mechanisms to reconcile some of their differences. So we should not lose hope in our commission. Remember, Chebukati and the other two who are on his side should be retiring sometimes on the 23rd day of January. That should be my birthday next year. So
happy birthday to you in advance.
Yeah, thank you, Stanley. So really, when they retire, we will have continuity. The purpose of the constitution that we have is to ensure that we have continuity. We have respect of institutions. It is not a question about Chebukati or Cherera or those others commission. No, it is about the commission. Long after these people have gone.
And not the individuals.
Yes. Long after these people have gone, will we still have the robust commission? Will we still have a commission that respects those principles of an election as decreed under Article 81 and 86 of the Constitution? That is what is important. Well, these people pass and go. Sometimes when you sit down and remember Kivoito, who made the declaration in the year 2007, is it Kivuti? Or
Kivuito.
Yes, Kivoito. Yeah. Who made the declaration? And when asked later on who won the election,
said he doesn't know.
He does not recall. And may God rest his soul in peace. I mean, he should have been here. I think he died before we even started enjoying the fruits of this constitution. But if he had been here to see what is happening, the steadfastness that we have seen in Chebukati, whether it's right or wrong, but at least we are seeing a man who is standing for something. Because that is what is important. It does not matter whether he is right or wrong. It is for the courts to tell us whether he is right or wrong. But at least from what we have seen, the body language of Chebukati, leave alone his baldness, but at least you are seeing a man who is firm in what he is saying, regardless of whether he is correct or he is wrong. Because he knows that after he has pronounced himself, the people who will say what is right, whether what he has done is right or wrong, is a preserve of the courts of law. So he has abandoned duty now. He's done what he's supposed to do. He's passed the baton. So really, it's a good moment, if you ask me, where all of us have now surrendered our sovereignty. We have surrendered everything to the Constitution. We want the court to tell us, Mother Kome, please tell us, is Chebukati correct, or are the four commissioners correct? So, yes, that is where we are at right now.
Basically, the final verdict lies on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Tayo, he says that we have come a milestone in our electoral process.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I agree, and I want to re-emphasize what Baba said. He congratulated Kenyans for exercising restraint. That is what we need to learn and to carry home. Let us trust our institutions. Let us trust our institutions to do the right thing. And for the institutions, don't betray the trust of Kenyans. They have said, we've done our bit, kura ndio hiyo. I think you saw a meme which was saying, if you are unable to count, tell us to bring our own votes to Bomas so that you count it easily. So you see, I like the baton example, that we pass the baton. So as the baton comes to you, please do the right thing in a verifiable way, in a bold way, in an independent way, so that you can be quoted like Kiai. I mean, we are quoting Kiai, he's nowhere in the sea, but he did something which is precedent-setting, and we are depending on it. So there's no problem with whatever is happening now. This is a creation. These are fruits of what the 2010 Constitution has brought to us. And let's embrace it as Kenyans. Let's keep peace. Let the institutions to deliver in their mandate. And they will deliver. They have done it. They're going to do it. And I'm sure by the time we're celebrating his birthday, mambo itakuwa sawa tu.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Wakili, looking at now the next government, if President-elect right now, Dr. William Ruto, will be sworn in, and again, things will remain that way. What do you see in now the opposition, basically?
Well, you see, really the design of an opposition government is a government that is in waiting. So one will want to ask themselves, and this one I say it off my head, is Raila Amolo Odinga, if he becomes the opposition leader, what will he be waiting for? Will he be waiting for the elections come the year 2027? I mean, what will really be the incentive of Raila Amolo Odinga continuing to press as he has always pressed in the opposition? I mean, if age, some people say age is just but a number, but really if age is anything to go by, his age is quite advanced. In any event, it has been said that the Bible has set some limits, blah, 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 but God has been very charitable to him. I think for the good things that he's done also to this country. But so that if you want to look at the next 5 years, in addition to his years right now, I mean, how strong will he be to be going around the 47 counties that we have in this country? And your guess will be as good as mine. So really, if we are going to have an opposition, fairly speaking, we're going to have a very weak opposition. Because Raila Amolo Odinga, with his 6.9 and plus million votes, these are people he commands. With this command, he will not be energetic enough to marshal some of these numbers to bring the government to account. But I think, whichever way you want to look at it, the constitution that we have right now, we have a pure presidential system. And if we respect the very design of the constitution, then it tells us with the separation of powers that we have in the different arms of government, and with now the independent commissions that are there in law, then I think we will still have very good oversight. Because really, the question is an oversight. So that if we have pilferage in the public resources that we have given the executive, we have the Auditor General, who is an independent office. He's going to audit what the government has been doing. So really, I do not see us running into an era or running into problems moving forward, even in the absence of a strong opposition. William Samoei Ruto has been in this country, the president-elect who has been declared. We know him. We have seen his ways. We are able to, and they declare their wealth. We are able to ascertain this is what he has. This is what he has gotten. over the period of time. So we will also be able to account, and to put him into account. So I don't see why we should have any fear. Remember, if everything ever goes haywire, the only place we can find solace and solutions is the Constitution. Our Constitution is the most progressive. Even my friend Ronnie Gundo, who is in America, the United States of America, with that progressive Constitution that they have, I know he reminds them of our current Constitution, which has been touted as the most progressive Constitution that we have in this country, or in the world, to just make a mention.
Indeed, 1,000 more reasons to be proud to be Kenyan.
Yes, yes.
Still on the whole, question of accountability, and I want to focus this on two parts.
Yeah.
The large part being, the accountability of having a strong opposition, an opposition that keeps the government in charge on toes, and then on the other hand is the leaders, that we elected now in the devolved units, basically, the MCAs, the women representatives, and all of that, the members of parliament, the governors, the senators. We as the electorate, we as the voters, how do we then ensure that these particular leaders are, put to task on what they had promised us? Because they would be there in the next 5 years. But then how do we ensure that for the, you say that in the next 100 days, again, I've never understood why we use 100 days, but then you say that in the next 100 days, you'll do this.
Yeah.
But then you don't do this. Yeah. So how do we, in both having a strong opposition in the national government and also deep down in the grassroots level?
Okay. One point before I answer that question, I wanted to give it to the legal fraternity. The LSK today did a presser.
Yeah.
Say their members are well ready to handle petitions.
They're ready for the cash.
No, to handle petitions. Yeah, that's his word. Just in case you want to pursue it in court. Yeah. Number two, the Supreme Court also has opened the registry in a very nice way. There are so many officers there to help if anyone wants to file. So the judiciary is ready to take the baton, to use my brother's words. Now, to accountability and the opposition bit. The role of the assemblies, the National Assembly or the County Assembly, is oversight. Of course, there are other roles. Now, we're talking about the oversight. Whether you are in the winning coalition or I don't want to say the losing, the majority or the minority
losing
formation.
Politically, I learned that this recent week.
Yeah. So whether you're in the majority or minority, you are duty bound to be an oversight tool to the executive. So don't relegate that thing to some, fanaticism, just doing things because you've been told, because a call has come. Be true to the people who elected you. Those 2,000, 5,000, 9,000, 28,000 people who elected you, they sent you to that house to be their representative. So first, be true to the people who elected you. Exercise your oversight role properly so that it's not really a matter of opposition, because you can't oppose something which is good for the people just because it's being proposed by the other side. So the word is oversight, and that needs to happen in the houses. When the reports come from the Auditor General, apply yourself to the reports and fault where there's fault, find what needs to be found, make decisions on the basis of some objective determination. And it's very critical again for all the elected leaders, especially the governors, to know that time is running already. These 100 days, I don't know the source also, but you can see at the national level, the Azimio formation already had a meeting at KICC. I'm sure they discussed much more than what we saw on live TV, including the election of the speaker and all these kind of things. I understand tomorrow the president-elect is meeting his team. So you can see these guys are already starting to work, because for some of the promises that were made within the manifesto, there's a legislative backing that is required. So you start marshalling your support. So we want to see and hear more of all these 45 elected governors meeting the elected MCAs. I would want to hear that they're already considering candidates to replace the ward administrators who left their executive role and went to vie as MCAs, because those are vacancies which were created. We want to hear them talking to their county public service boards to nominate or to start the process of, replacing people who resigned and went for seats within the various positions that were open. So that work needs to start. We did our work as voters. We gave you some responsibility. Develop us, help us to manage all these resources. You need to start working now. Mambo ya celebration ilikwisha. Whatever is happening in national politics is another thing. At the devolved units, things should start moving. And I could be wrong, and I want to pose it in the form of a question. The swearing in of the governors will happen, whether there will be a petition or not.
Yes.
Yeah, so they need to start working. Select or appoint somebody to deal with the petitions, okay? And start working, because if the petition precipitates a re-election, part of what will give you votes is those few days you were in office, what did you do? Okay, so for the governors, you have no time to waste. Start working. Start working. Look forward to the swearing in. The Chief Justice already appointed judges to swear them in. I think we're going to see the swearing in starting shortly. So work needs to start. Accountability to the manifestos. Now it's when now we will know the people who are just saying things and the people who are really meaning what they were saying. But there's a wide, there are many avenues for citizens to be involved in the program of government. When the budget process starts, there are requirements of public participation. So let's not relegate our duty, let us participate. But there's a small challenge, because I come from Taita. Maybe I go to vote to Taita and I live in Nairobi. You see, that's something now we need to do as Kenyans. Where you live, that should be the place where you vote.
Before you continue, the whole question of devolution,
yes,
which as actually as a governance expert, so to speak, how much has this devolution bit of it helped in matters voting right now?
There's some local patriotism that has been birthed out of it, and that is what I was trying to address. That people have gone around the country and they have seen, for example, what has happened in Kakamega and what has happened in other counties. So you're talking about a stadium, you go to Kakamega, you're amazed. What is this? Was this done by the county government? Then you go to your rural place, your county, you find some other things which are supposed to be stadiums. So people have been exposed and they can see that here we're getting a raw deal. I want to be part of this change. So you're seeing people traveling back to their homes to vote, to influence the voting patterns and those kind of things. Then you come back to Nairobi or to Mombasa where you live. Again, you're lost now in terms of your loyalties. So we really need to interrogate ourselves. And what I'm saying is, where you live is the best place for you to vote, because you will be there for most of your time, most of your life, and chances are you will be able to cross paths with the leaders and push for them to be more accountable, more productive, more optimal in how they are adjudicating the resources that are provided for them for our benefit.
I was actually having a discussion with some particular friends, and they were saying that they'd better vote for the grassroots leaders around them, the members of county assembly, the women representatives, because they directly help them, so to speak, rather than they don't really see the need to vote for a president. Should we be having such kind of sort of mindsets?
We shouldn't, because, and I want to thank the 14 million plus who voted for the president. I think the country is a unit. The two levels of government work together. They are not separate. They are distinct but not separate. So we need to exercise that right. Tick all pick all the 6 ballots and utilize them properly. You see, there was a call by some of the leaders to do a 6-piece kind of voting. And that's because when you are in power, you want, for you to be effective, you have to have access. I'm avoiding to use the word control. You need access to leaders who support your agenda across the divide. And we've seen that in counties where there was good cooperation between the county government and the national government, a lot of development has happened. In counties where there was a lot of animosity, that we don't support you because you come from this region, again, some priorities fall off. So it's important that, you know, we are all Kenyans. These are creations of the Constitution, and that they were meant to foster accountability, not division. They were meant to foster, you know, good application of resources, and not, you know, withholding of resources from each other. So,
and now, still on the whole, you know, devolved matters of the counties, we have for a long time, since, you know, the whole implementation, we understood matters, you know, devolution, from one, maybe from a member of the county assembly, getting a position now all the way to a governor. And I'm pretty sure some particular governors right now, governors-elect, were before some were members of parliament. Now it created the whole food chain kind of, you know, scenario where, you know, you move from a low rank, so to speak, now again to a higher rank. Should we, is this you know, practical, basically, Okili?
No, Stanley, I think, you know, devolution is a good invention. It is a good thing. When you think about the Constitution again, I think you must be all smiles when you think about what devolution has done and what devolution is actually intended to do. As we speak right now, there are a few boxers who have also tried and, you know, occupied those spaces there. We have one of our colleagues, is called Shadrack, who is now a representative of the Umoja. We have a few, you know, young men who are also getting an opportunity to lead and to participate in the governance of their country. And the best place to begin, because, sorry, the problem has been the leadership at the top. I think the best place to begin mentoring leaders on principles of accountability, on principles of, you know, accountable use of resources, and impactful use of resources, I believe should be at the grassroots, so that we go up. So that this MCA that you choose, if we decide that Stanley and Atosha, then we give Stanley the votes, we help you to ascend up the ladder of leadership, up, you know, governor, and you go up. And it's a good thing, because you are the one who understand the problems of the people you live with, where you come from, you know, your society and all that. I still vote where I was born and brought up, in the slums of Mathare. That is where I was born and brought up. And up until today, I still go back home, because I know the importance of having a leader who understands the problem of the people you know, of the people where I come from. You know, if you've never lived in those mabati houses, if you've never suffered some of these raging fires, where people, you know, houses are always burnt. If you do not understand the problems of people going to sleep while they are hungry, then you can never address the problems of the people you purport to represent. And that is why it becomes a personal interest. It becomes a personal objective that I must participate, at least at the lower cadre of the leadership. And one of the most competitive MCA elections that we had, or the campaigns, were at Mlango Kubwa, where I come from, where we had the incumbent and the nominated MCA competing very, very strongly. And this has, you know, this has awakened the conscience of the people who are living in that area. People have now, you know, fallen in love with the leadership. People want to participate. You hear every young man and young woman is saying, I want to participate in the leadership of the next election. And that is something beautiful. The problem we've been having of people, you know, surrendering their leadership, the leadership of their country, to I don't know who. They do not want to participate in the elections because they think, you know, there is a predetermined winner, there is a loser who has also been predetermined. That is a long gone case. And we want people to meaningfully participate in the elections and the governance of their country.
Indeed, and also I think participating in these particular elections is another way of making sure that you're accountable to these particular leaders.
Very true. Every vote counts, as we have seen, be it 0.01 or 1%.
Indeed.
The other bit I want to mention as we follow your cue is that the County Governments Act has the executive side of the devolved units. So in the ward where the MCA is the representative, you have a ward administrator. Then below the ward, you have village councils. And this is a framework which is meant to support public participation. So let us be part of those village councils. Let us be part of those nyumba kumis, because that's where now we create dialogues regarding the development and priorities, and we consolidate those thoughts and escalate them. We pass the baton, so that we are involved in how these governments are running. And I challenge the elected governors to quickly replace the village admins who left, the ward administrators who left, so that in a month or two into your administration, that structure should be there, and it will really help in implementing the manifesto. It will really help even in validating if whatever you thought people want is what they really want, so that you start implementing projects which have the blessing of the people.
Briefly, as we wrap this particular conversation up, you talked about the whole grassroots levels for these particular leaders and the whole members of county assembly. Briefly, do you think these leaders, as they were vying, they understood their roles?
I think that being in the third cycle of devolution, people have understood. And that's why we are seeing very qualified people vying for all kinds of positions, without thinking that this is too small a position. So people have understood, the voters have understood, so we call on the elected leaders, the people who won, to be more respectful and to the call that they have been trusted with. Deliver, just serve the people. We are not asking you to do miracles. We don't want your salary. Just serve the people. Use the budget the way it should be used, and we will be happy with you.
Indeed. Yeah. It will definitely be an interesting third phase of this particular devolution.
Certainly.
1 minute each. Do you think our politics will ever be unlucrative and unemotive? Can start with you as we wrap up. Because we saw the whole tension. Everybody waiting. Will my president, will my fifth actually be the winner or the loser? But then, will we ever remove that particular mindset that there doesn't really have to be a winner or a loser?
I think there will always be a winner and a loser. The question is, where will the loser go? And that calls for magnanimity upon the people who win. The handshake doctrine was established very well. It's changing into a cup of tea. So we are yet to see what that cup of tea will beget. But the thing is, if we play our roles in whatever the Constitution has provided, with the people at the center of it all, we will win. And I like it the way it is. You think it's over, but it's not yet over. There is recourse for everyone else, and it's good. At the end of the day, once the game is settled, the winner is comfortable and they can govern. The loser is satisfied that they got a fair determination of that loss, and they can then say, let's work together, or let me play my role in the opposition.
Right. Yeah. Wakili, a few seconds or rather a minute. Do you think that our politics will ever be, how campaigns and all that, be quite unemotive, that, we won't really be seeing these particular positions as quite lucrative, that we really want them?
Well, Stanley, to be fair to you and probably even our viewers, I think the correct response is await and see. It's all await and see whether this politics will ever be less competitive. But from where I sit, I think there are some legal measures that can be taken to ensure that the politics, as we know of it today, becomes less competitive. For example, by ensuring that we timelessly pass the election finance, the campaign finance, regulations in good timing, and we come up with the good regulations on the, financing and campaigning. Because we have seen the elections have not to a larger extent been free and fair. Because poor people like us, people who do not have monies, a lot of money like the people who have been doing wash and all those other things, they have been dishing money everywhere. So really, people who are visionary can never get an opportunity, because most of the Kenyans out here are also dying of hunger. And when they are given something, they feel a sense of indebtedness. And this indebtedness is the one that is now leading to, the election of people who are in wash and these other funny businesses. So really, if you ask me, in the fullness of time, I am hoping that we will have an election that is free and fair, that the elections will not be very competitive. Now we have removed the CDF. You will not be seeing so many people, wishing to be MPs, because they have been stealing from that CDF kitty. Now moving forward, that position will be there with 2 or 3 people who are not very serious about that election. So I am just but hoping that in the fullness of time, the tension that we have will reduce. And in any event, if you are to have a constitutional change, I think it's a high time that you also think of what to do with the number 2. Raila with probably his 6.9 million votes, he's just going to oblivion, the bottomless pit of nothing. He will just disappear if nothing is ever done. If the president-elect does not become magnanimous, as my colleague will put it, if he does not extend that hand or that handshake or that cup of tea, then I think, he will just disappear, and yet he commands a very, a big group of people, 6.9 people. If you call people here, you might probably attract 2 or 3. Raila Odinga attracts 6.9 million. So I think it's something that we need to think about the design of the constitution, so that it does not become really fast past the post.
Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen, for having and creating your time, your busy schedule, to actually have this particular discussion, the law and the numbers. Where do they meet in between and the way forward? Shadrack Wambui, a constitutional lawyer, and Davis Tayo, an economic empowerment expert and also a governance expert and also a former banker, quite a lot in that particular heart. But then thank you. Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen, for creating a time to actually have this particular discussion, and most importantly to you, dear viewer, for actually creating time to actually tune in to actually listen to this particular discussion. Keep talking to us on our social media platforms at TV47KE on Facebook and Twitter. My name is Stanley Nyeringita. Have yourself a blissful evening ahead.